Earth, real name Taichi Tanaka, was a miserable 40-year-old guy who wanted to escape his shitty life, so he played online games. But he accidentally picked the most useless F-rank abilities he could possibly pick, and somehow ended up as the most overpowered player in the game. Maybe his life will turn around and he'll have a maiden on his cucumber for a change. Do make sure to like the video and sub to the channel. Both don't cost anything and greatly help the channel. In real life, he worked hard at his job as a salary worker with only 3 hours to game. He's a solo player in both real life and the game, like a true blue pill loser. He earns money, but instead of chasing romance or trying to hook up with someone, he spent his free time diving into a new VR game. No baby oil for this guy. He likes being trash in games, so better players don't get toxic with him. He saw himself as an aging loser. He even jokingly called himself an old man. But in the game, he felt alive, always picking a younger character. He named his character Earth and gave him an average, forgettable look because he didn't want to draw attention or be the hero type. With a full-time job and adult responsibilities, he could only play a few hours a day. Worried he'd be a burden to others, he mostly played solo. When it came time to choose Earth's skills, he purposely picked the weakest ones. These were abilities that were seen as useless during the game's beta phase. He wanted to stay under the radar and play at his own pace without hardcore gamers bothering him. He chose skills like medicine, which was pointless because healing potions were easy to buy from NPCs. He picked kick, which lacked any real power or flair. His archery skill was horribly inaccurate, and his stealth ability burned through his magic fast while barely helping him escape danger. Even his enhanced physical ability skill, meant to slightly boost running, crafting, or fighting, barely made a difference. All in all, Earth might have built the worst character in the history of gaming. At least I truly don't understand his reasoning for all this. He actually preferred it that way. Eventually, he joined a game called One More Free Life Online. The name fit perfectly. It let players enjoy a second life without the pressure of beating a final boss. People could fight monsters, craft cool gear, or just hang out and chat. It was perfect for folks who weren't exactly thrilled with their real lives. A random girl waved Earth over to sell him some gear. But right then, a group of heroes returned from battle, and Earth noticed none of them were archers. Suddenly, a guy dressed in the shiniest armor set started to mock our boy for picking a bow, since it had terrible stats. Horrible way to begin his first day. The guy trashed bows, called Earth a freak, a nerd, and even made him eat dirt for breakfast. Others were glad they weren't him, as no one cared to help him. A blue-haired girl with a staff was with her man, saw all of this, and kept an eye on the weird player. Later, Earth went to the training hall. Watching other players spar got him pumped, so he gave it a shot. Unfortunately, he was too weak. He quickly realized he was terrible at archery. Still, he didn't give up. Despite missing almost everything, he kept at it. After 100 tries, he finally reached level 5. To celebrate, he tested his kicking ability. Surprisingly, it had improved. He also gained wind magic and found it was more reliable than his arrows. With a few basic skills under his belt, Earth had just enough to survive. Out there, it was chaos. Tons of newbies all looking for a hunting spot, went with most just arguing with each other. He figured he'd gather herbs instead. He could see from long distances, but had no clue what he was grabbing. Earth tried identifying them himself. He failed a lot at first, but eventually leveled up his appraising skills. One herb turned out to be super deadly, known as suffocation herb. It could stop someone's breathing instantly. Earth was furious the developers left something that dangerous in a beginner area, but at least now he knew how to identify herbs. After that, he bought a basic medicine-making kit and tried crafting healing potions. Against all odds, he managed to brew a standard potion, then followed it up with an antidote. Once he succeeded, the game let him batch craft more of the same. He remembered, though, that players could get cheap potions from NPCs, so he worried no one would care about the ones he made. Earth had reached level 7 in his medicine skill, so he figured it was time to go hunting. Luckily, there weren't many other players around, so he got first dibs on a nearby beast. Knowing that bows weren't exactly rapid fire, he aimed carefully for his first shot, only to miss. The bunny got angry, but Earth managed to nail its paw with an arrow and followed up with a knee to its gut. One final kick sent it flying. That's when he realized maybe he was better at kicking than archery. Just then, 2 players approached, the girl who noticed him and a guy named Zwei, who couldn't stop laughing. The girl was Millie. At first, he thought they were laughing at him, But it turned out Zwei thought the bunny made a funny sound as it was sent flying. He joked about humor being justice, which left Earth wondering if he was some sort of clown. The two then wanted to send him friend requests. Earth agreed, and the two soon left. Earth kept grinding for XP, but he soon noticed that the bunnies were pretty clever. Even when he tried sneaking up on them, they spotted him. Still, he managed to take one down with a wind spell. Wanting to try out his stealth spell, he snuck up on another bunny, and it actually worked. Earth realized that while he couldn't aim his bow to save his life, using it in combination with stealth made him surprisingly powerful. Eventually, he logged off, knowing that the hardcore players would be grinding all night, but he wasn't a kid anymore. He had bills to pay, so he had to sleep to go to work in the morning. The next day, breakfast was some awful tasting bread. He thought if this game allowed him the feature of taste, you might as well have tasty food, so he decided to cook for himself. He tried seasoning a steak to make it delicious, but his first attempt was a disaster and only scored a 2. After tweaking his method, the second try was a hit. Motivated to do even better, he got into the zone. Pre-cutting the meat, parboiling, putting it on a pan with oil, finally a little seasoning with thyme. The mouth-watering smell of his dish drew a crowd. It was like when you open a pack of food in class. Naturally, everyone's gonna ask you to give them some. Earth easily succumbed to peer pressure. Townsfolk begged for a taste, but he wasn't about to give it away. He set a sky-high price of $100 of the game currency, and to his surprise, people were happy to pay. Next thing he knew, he picked up another part-time job, working like a college kid, trying to make tuition money. Leveling up his cooking skill to 20 and even unlocking a speed-boosting technique, Earth later decided it was time to craft a bow. Since bows weren't popular in the game, archers had to craft their own. Earth's first attempt was rough. It scored just a 3 and only had 4 attack power, but his second bow was a huge upgrade. He carefully pieced together 3 types of wood, sanding them down until they fit perfectly, and it packed a solid 12 attack power. Along with new armor, his stats saw a major boost, though his wallet didn't. To earn some cash, he stocked a vending machine with food and grape-flavored soda, serving as his healing potions. He activated Hawkeye, leveled up, and started defeating stronger monsters. Things were looking up for you, boy, and he racked up a ton of supplies. When he returned to his vending machine, he was met with thank you notes from players who loved his products. But his progress was interrupted by a sudden in-game crisis, a new patch. Suddenly, the game started to prioritize crafting potions. Since NPCs no longer had unlimited potions to sell to players, prices shot up. In the end, this caused chaos as a normal potion tripled in value, and yet players still bought them, and soon they were all sold out. Earth was confused by this and called Zwei, who explained that this was the new reality of the game. But Zwei had more news. Things were going to get worse for Earth because players were starting to recognize him for his potions and cooking. Before long, people were hunting him down to buy potions and rabbit steaks. Players flooded him with requests. Even when he limited sales and raised prices, people were still eager to pay. What started as friendly praise turned into frantic demands, since he was the only player who actually had a craft skill. His friends, Zwei and Millie, stepped in to help manage the chaos, handling money and crowd control. When Earth ran out of potions, people promised they'd return the next day. Then came the obnoxious player, Shiny Turd Sniffer, who tried to intimidate Earth into handing over everything. Earth refused, insisting the potions were for those who truly needed them, but mostly for whoever paid him. Zwei tried to play peacemaker, but the bully beat him down with the power of his clout and his fat wallet. At first, no one stepped in. Earth had been a no-name loser, but now people had invested their coin in him. No one was gonna let some punk mess with their potion plug. Shiny Turd Sniffer realized he'd made a mistake. Earth had love in his city, and that meant the whole community was ready to throw hands. So the guy decided to play by Earth's rules and actually pay for a potion, but he still acted like a jerk about it, looking down on him. Earth had no reason to sell to him. So the bully challenged him to a duel. Despite warnings from Zwei, Earth accepted. Using the bully's arrogance against him, Earth dodged a powerful attack, landed a knee check to the face, and followed it with a precise arrow to the neck, winning the fight. Our boy's better than me, because while the crowd cheered, he stayed humble, reinforcing a positive vibe for everyone watching. But it was all an act. Deep down, Earth knew the village would now shun Shiny Turd and his crew, which meant no more potions, no more armor, and no more welcome in this city again. A few days had passed since the issue with the missing potions. and the game underwent a major shift. Players realized that understanding how to use medicine had become essential. Players began to grasp that even NPCs could run out of supplies, which pushed them to consider learning medical skills. When Earth logged back in, he thanked Zwei for inviting him to his guild, Blue Collar. Zwei then introduced the rest of the team. First up was Rage, a large guy who wielded a one-handed axe and shield. He explained that his role was to draw enemy attention. Next was Nora, a close combat fighter who used short swords. Zwei also made it clear, jokingly or not, that anyone who used the words smooth or flat would be in trouble, as she's been compared to a cutting board. Lastly, there was Kazamine, a skilled swordsman. When Earth tried to introduce himself, the others cut him off, already hyping up his skills based on rumors. He didn't want too much attention, especially after recently putting a bully in their place. Apparently, his duel was recorded, getting tons of views on YouTube as people couldn't believe a guy who was known as a chef beat a pay-to-win player with a crap weapon, with bows being extremely hard to use. Earth also noticed that their party's composition was a bit off. 4 melee fighters, 1 mage, and himself, the only archer. But Zwei reassured him, saying Millie could use various types of magic, and Nora had some healing abilities. Their first mission was to defeat a wild bear. Everyone seemed confident, though Earth wasn't sure why. Zwei told him the team was counting on him, which made Earth uneasy. He'd never even seen a wild bear before, and had only heard that they were fast, clever, and hard to bring down. Zwei brushed off his concerns and promised a tasty meal as a reward afterward, volunteering Earth to cook. When they found a group of wild bears, they chose one they could isolate and take down together. It was then the others began to realize how useful Earth's long-range vision and skills really were, and how valuable it was to have him on the team. Millie casts support buffs on Zwei, and together they come up with a plan to lure one of the bears away from the pack. Meanwhile, Earth activates his stealth ability and lands an arrow in the back of the bear's neck, but he didn't really think through what would happen once the bear got angry. Luckily, their tank, Rage, jumps in to take the heat. Earth explains that monsters have something called aggro, which determines who they focus their attacks on. Since Rage has high defense, he takes the brunt of the damage to protect the team. Earth hides in the bushes to snipe from a safe distance while Millie keeps Rage healed, and Nora jumps in to deal extra damage with some back shots. The team quickly learns that the bear's hide is incredibly tough. Millie, feeling like the MVP, tries a fire spell to draw its attention again, successfully redirecting aggro back to Rage. The fight starts to turn into a real struggle, and Zwei begins to realize they may have underestimated their opponent. Seeing things take a turn for the worse, Earth makes a snap decision. Relying on his 38 years of real-life experience, he takes a risky shot, aiming between the bear's eyes, hoping it's a weak spot. It seems like it hits, but doesn't actually do much. The bear has a massive health pool. With no other option, Earth uses a speed spell he unlocked at Wind Magic level 15, giving him a 10-second burst of agility. He charges in and forcibly kicks the arrow deeper into the bear's skull. Millie backs him up with a powerful fire spell. Together, they finally bring the beast down, realizing afterward just how intense the fight really was. To celebrate, Earth cooks a new dish for everyone, and they're blown away by how good it tastes. Nora assumes it must be expensive to make, but Earth tells them it's not about the cost, it's about the recipe. The catch? Recipes can't really be bought or sold. Crafters tend to keep them secret because they take a lot of time, money, and experimentation to perfect. Even if someone else got the same recipe, the final result would still vary. Simply put, recipes are more about a crafter's skill and creativity than just following steps. Zwei insists Earth should keep cooking for them for cheap, and the rest of the party agrees, ignoring Earth's refusal. They all add him as a friend, and Earth's first real team-up ends on a high note. But in the next scene, things go downhill. Riding the high of his victory, Earth gets cocky and ventures into the game's forest area. He picks a fight with a bee but misses, hitting a rock ant. Alone, the ant is able to overpower him, but ants always come in a group, with them surrounding him. Worse, it has a damage reflection ability. He's overwhelmed, immobilized, and ends up dying. Earth gets hit with a penalty and respawns back in town. He admits he let his ego get the better of him and promises to be more careful next time. Just then, a system-wide message announces a new update, the Fairy Ball. It'll add new skills, items, and helpful fairy companions for crafting classes. Earth knows the other players will be grinding hard to level up and he can't afford to keep taking losses. Later on, we see Earth putting in serious effort and picking up blacksmithing. Determined not to repeat past mistakes, he sets out to make a new type of arrowhead capable of piercing through tough ant hides. He uses two kinds of iron: standard iron for piercing and ultra pure iron for blunt force. He attaches the finished head to a wooden shaft, creating an iron arrow with a 7 attack stat. Then he forges a mace-like version designed to crush, anticipating future enemies that might reflect damage. Since kicks don't allow weapon use, Earth modifies his boots, adding short spikes on the soles and a blade along the side. It's still a prototype, but it boosts his attack to 12 and gives him 2 extra defense. He's eager to test it and improve. While he's working, a couple of jerks show up and mock his boots, asking if they're weapons or just ugly. Earth just smirks and tells them the versatility of the boots, making them look dumb as now they like them. Later, Earth hits up a shop for bowstrings. The clerk notices his weird boots and gets a little freaked out when he casually mentions he's planning to fight ants with them. She's surprised, but thinks it's kinda cool. Earth then talks about hitting level 30 in archery and needing to pick a specialization. He considers 3 options: short bow, long bow, and hunting bow. Short bows are easy to handle but have weak range, not great for someone who stays out of melee. Long bows are powerful but too slow for solo play. So he chooses the hunting bow. It matches his old one in range and power, but comes with stronger skills like bonus attack. He starts crafting his new bow, settling on a unique design. The local blacksmith sees what he's working on and is stunned. He's never seen a bow like it. Earth tells him that's the fun part of this world, as they get to make things that would be unconventional in the real world. The man agrees. Earth completes the bow and names it the X bow. It's got 32 attack power and takes more strength to use, but it feels amazing. He gets a little sentimental over his old bow, thanking it for everything, but quickly gets hyped to try the new one out. The next day, Earth heads back to the forest, fired up. He tracks down a lone ant and whacks it with his arrow twister. The ant tries to reflect the damage, but Earth finishes it off with a piercing shot. Still not satisfied, he goes on a full-blown ant massacre. By the end, he stands victorious over a pile of squashed bugs. But his vengeance clearly isn't over yet. He drags the ant bodies back into town, planning to turn them into armor. That's when he hears about the upcoming fairy ball and spots a magical crystal. Since he's an archer, he hopes to form a contract with a wind fairy. He starts the ritual, but the crystal shakes violently and shatters, just like his hopes. Later, he vents to Zwei about the failed attempt, but is stunned to see that everyone else had success and made a contract with a fairy. They encourage Earth not to give up. They explain that he might still have a shot in the second half of the event, and the broken item doesn't disappear, meaning there's still hope. Zwei's glad at least one problem is off their plate, but they can't help wondering, why do fairies seem so drawn to Earth in the first place, with them calling Earth a player? Later, Earth lounges in the shade when a soft glimmer of light drifts toward him. He rises to greet it, commenting that fairies have been unusually drawn to him lately. One flutters down to rest on his finger, and he gently apologizes, explaining that he still can't form a contract due to his broken crystal. The tiny fairy curiously interacts with the crystal, prompting Earth to check his stat window. To his surprise, several of his skills have leveled up, granting him 3 XP points to invest in a new specialization. Inside a pitch-black cave, Earth moves cautiously. The experience reminds him of his childhood, wandering dark places fueled by curiosity. His current skill set helps him avoid traps and navigate treacherous paths. Suddenly, glowing red eyes appear in the shadows. It's a spider. Earth reacts fast, losing an arrow and following up with a wind cutter attack. But the spider survives and lunges at him. Forced to adapt, Earth activates his new high jump skill. Though he smashes into the ceiling, he manages to land behind the spider. He then yanks it toward him with a whip and uses the special boots he'd equipped to deliver a finishing blow. As the spider's body vanishes, a strange purple glow emerges. Darkness fairies. He decides to follow them. They lead him through a risky route, but thanks to his stable center of gravity skill, he keeps his balance and avoids falling. At the end of the path, he discovers a large gathering of fairies around a massive boulder. Curious, he shifts the rock aside and finds a hidden door. Inside, he uncovers a box holding an ancient ring. He keeps it as a memento of this hidden adventure and thanks the fairies. At that moment, a global message from the Game Masters appears. The second phase of the Fairy Ball event has begun. It's called the Fairy Battle Tournament. Earth rushes back to the main city for the official announcement. He goes back to the town square to see the alert from the Game Masters. The developers reveal that fairies can evolve by participating in the event. To trigger the evolution, players must win a set number of PvP matches, but each win must be against a different opponent. They also announced that the top 16 players will be invited to a special tournament featuring incredible new rewards. Alongside this, the latest game update introduces a title system, letting players earn and show off unique achievements. Some of these titles will be rare and tied to individual playstyles, but the biggest news for Earth is this. Players who previously failed to form a contract with a fairy can now restore their broken crystal by fighting other players. Once repaired, these crystals are guaranteed to succeed when forming a contract, with a high probability of summoning an S-rank fairy. The update also adds a new feature. Fairies will now have distinct personalities and identities, making them feel more alive. Everyone's excited about the changes, including Earth. Still, Earth worries that this will make combat-weak crafters like himself a target for PvP hunters. He brings up his concerns to his fellow crafters, but they reassure him. They've already agreed on a solution. Blacklist anyone who tries to force them into PvP. In other words, if someone messes with a crafter, they'll be banned from buying crafted items permanently. Earth is relieved to know his community is already taking steps to protect themselves. Blacks then asks Earth if he's visited the new town yet, suggesting he use the warp portal to get there. He also warns Earth that the area is swarming with hardcore PvP players. Some are even organizing meetups for battles in the town. Earth finds that pretty normal for a game like this and asks if Blacks plans to fight too. But Blacks is more interested in crafting new items, which Earth respects as another valid way to enjoy the event. A few days later, the new patch goes live and Earth logs in. Curious, he checks out the new title system, only to realize that everyone is staring at him. Turns out he's been given a rare title, and not just any title. His says Fairy Playboy. Even worse, the game won't let him hide it unless he participates in a special PvP match during the event. Earth is mortified and baffled. The title feels embarrassing, yet oddly, fairies begin flocking around him. Deciding enough is enough, he yells for someone, anyone, to duel him so he can get rid of it. A girl named Rona answers his call and sends him a challenge. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Earth tears up and thanks her. She says she recognizes him, but he's drawing a blank. Rona introduces herself as a member of Blue Color, Zwei's Guild, and mentions that she practices martial arts. She's also curious about Earth's in-game kicks. Just as Earth is about to accept her duel challenge, Rona's fairy suddenly lands on his shoulder, acting strangely affectionate. Both of them are confused. Rona says her fairy is usually very shy. Then, out of nowhere, the fairy presses the reject duel button, canceling the match. Earth is baffled when Rona awkwardly admits she doesn't really know what her fairy wants. The fairy then snuggles up to Earth's neck, leaving everyone around them stunned. But it also confirms his in-game title isn't just for show. Earth really is a fairy playboy. He yells that it's not true and tries to challenge someone else, but every time he attempts a duel, the fairies refuse to fight him. It keeps happening. Rona remarks that she's never seen anything like it, while Earth grumbles about the game developers. He goes back to his usual routine, cooking, until Rona reaches out again. Her fairy refuses to eat anything she offers, and she's looking for advice. Earth quickly guesses the fairy wants him to cook something instead. Rona's surprised he figured it out so fast, but the reason becomes clear. Earth's food stand has become wildly popular. Apparently, someone tried feeding their fairy some bread earlier. When it got rejected, they asked Earth to cook something instead. The fairy loved it, word got out, and now players are lining up for fairy-friendly meals. Despite trying to stay under the radar, Earth keeps accidentally becoming famous. Rona returns to help out at the stall, and together they handle the flood of customers. Afterward, they thank each other. When Rona asks what he's planning next, Earth realizes he hasn't even looked at the new patch yet. She invites him to explore the new town, and they teleport to a place called Nexia. Earth is impressed by Nexia, and they head over to the PvP zone. Two players are about to duel. One has a blue parrot, and the other a red wolf. Rona immediately notices something off about the wolf, and Earth agrees, but they decide to watch the match play out. The parrot user casts wind magic, and the two clash swords in an intense battle. Eventually, the wolf guy gains the upper hand and orders his fairy to use a fire attack, but the wolf straight up ignores him. He shouts more commands, but the wolf doesn't respond. Earth and Rona are confused. Fairies usually follow orders. The parrot uses lightning magic, and its owner finishes the match with a sword strike. After the duel, Rona wonders why the wolf didn't listen. Earth explains the guy is what players call a terrible fairy user, someone who abuses their fairy to force obedience. It backfires when the fairy stops listening entirely. The defeated player angrily stands up, looking like he's about to strike his fairy. Earth instantly senses trouble. When Rona asks what's going on, he tells her he once saw a video of a similar case. A player mistreated his fairy so badly that the system punished him by making him fight it. The fairy evolved into an S rank and completely destroyed the player, taking the contract crystal and resetting all data. This time, the angry player must have known the risk because he stormed off instead of escalating. Rona didn't know that was even a feature, but Earth explains it's inspired by old game mechanics, where mistreated pets could rebel or even turn on their owners. Rona says it sounds outdated, but Earth just shrugs, saying newer games coddle players too much. He figures the game masters are trying to make this feel like an old-school MMO RPG. Then he says his farewells and logs out. Back in the real world, Earth removes his VR headset, thinking about how some players, like Rona, genuinely care about their fairies, while others don't. Later, he logs back in and focuses on crafting. That's when the guy from the PvP match approaches him, wanting to talk because of Earth's title. Earth is a bit annoyed, but listens. The guy who owns a wolf fairy says he wants to make things right with his companion. As expected, the wolf is calm and affectionate toward Earth. The guy admits he's aware of the consequences if he keeps mistreating his fairy, and asks Earth for advice. When Earth asks why he was so cruel to the wolf, the guy explains he misunderstood the game's mechanics. Early on, he watched online videos where people treated their fairies poorly, like pets or circus acts, so he copied them. But with a recent update giving fairies actual personalities, everything changed. The wolf no longer obeyed him, and out of frustration, he even hit it at times. Now he deeply regrets it and pleads for Earth's help, offering payment. Earth refuses the money, but agrees to help. His advice: start treating the wolf like a real friend. The guy's a little lost at first, but Earth elaborates: fight side by side, share meals, take breaks together, and always say goodbye when logging out. That kind of consistent kindness would help the wolf begin to trust and follow him again. The guy then asks Earth to cook something tasty for the wolf. Earth prepares a meal, and the guy offers it to his fairy. Though hesitant, the wolf accepts it. The guy tears up, realizing his fairy is slowly beginning to forgive him. He thanks Earth and walks away with his companion. As they leave, another person who was watching the whole thing steps forward. Earth asks who he is, and the stranger introduces himself as Silver, someone who wants to have a private word with Earth. Earth agrees to speak with an old man, though he's unsure whether the figure is a top player or an advanced NPC, as he was shown as one of the heroes of the game. Inside the house, he quickly notes that the man's gear, movement, and level all appear to be far superior to his own. The old man settles into a seat and asks Earth if he's ever encountered someone named Glad. Earth thinks for a moment before replying that he hasn't. The old man explains there's a rumor floating around that Glad has been targeting players who hold the Fairy Playboy title. Earth, puzzled, asks who this Glad is. The man explains that Glad used to be part of his party. Although socially awkward and a bit difficult to deal with, he had once been an excellent tank. Earth gets the feeling that Glad was probably kicked out of the group, and the old man confirms it. He explains that Glad grew arrogant, started belittling other members. This went on for a while until the new update came, and he was especially bitter about being the only one in the party who failed to form a contract with a fairy during the previous event. His frustrations spiraled out of control, and he ended up lashing out, as Leader Silver had seen enough and removed Glad from the team. At that moment, the old man calls forth his fairy, revealing an A-rank humanoid light Valkyrie. Earth is surprised, and the old man admits that Glad always envied his bond with her, rejecting any help offered because of it. However, after the recent game update, Glad acquired a new contract crystal and successfully bonded with a dark fox fairy. Since then, he's been challenging players to special PvP duels. Earth asks if Glad is doing this out of lingering bitterness from his earlier failure. The old man nods and warns that Glad intends to make a dramatic return on the final day of the Fairy Ball event to prove his strength. He urges Earth to be cautious. Earth agrees, but privately, he's skeptical, thinking it's risky to accept just one side of the story. Still, he takes the warnings seriously. To avoid unnecessary confrontations, he reduces his time spent in the city. Instead, he focuses on fighting monsters and gathering resources, especially since players can't challenge him to duels while he's already in combat. Earth hunts wild bears to stockpile meat and fur. He plans to craft cloaks from the fur, noting that most armor doesn't protect players' backs. He snipes a bear with a clean headshot, but the creature doesn't go down easily. Enraged, it charges at him. Earth reacts quickly, activating his mirror arrow skill to create two illusions, each firing an arrow of their own. The bear is staggered, and Earth whips it to the ground before leaping into the air and landing a powerful kick. The beast is defeated, and Earth's kick skill hits level 50. He chooses to evolve it into Sliding Charge, a move that allows him to tackle enemies while sliding or escape dangerous situations with speed. Pleased with the upgrade, he also notices the game's UI has been revamped, making everything much clearer. With that, he sets his sights on the mines, planning to gather steel and light metals for his next round of crafting. Out of nowhere, Earth strikes a piece of explosive ore. He quickly warns everyone nearby to be careful, as it might detonate. But luckily, nothing happens. The players around him comment that even though explosive ore is basically a grenade, it's rarely used because of how unstable it is. Still, a few players specialize in it and are known as bomb masters. Once inside the forge, Blax greets him with a sarcastic question, asking if he's about to make another bizarre item. Turns out, Blax isn't far off. Earth is planning to craft a new arrowhead and a metal whip. His arrowhead is inspired by a twisted dagger design meant to tear into flesh more effectively. He begins forging by shaping an ore ingot into an arrow and twisting it into shape. It takes multiple tries and a lot of effort, but eventually, he finishes it. It's harder to make than a standard arrowhead, but the result is worth it. This twisted arrow deals plus 15 attack damage and inflicts wounds that apply a fissure effect, causing the enemy to bleed over time. Next, he starts on the metal whip. Normally, whips aren't made from metal, but he knows of a special lightweight alloy that's durable enough for the job. By heating and stretching it repeatedly, he reshapes it to match his current whip. To enhance it further, he adds a series of triangular fish scale-like pieces. Once finished, the system confirms that it will inflict wounds on any enemy it hits. Earth then moves to a safer area to experiment with the volatile explosive ore. He knows using it raw is too dangerous, so he uses his medicinal knowledge to stabilize it. He mixes different herbs and oils with the ore to control the ignition timing and ends up with 3 test samples. He throws bottle A, nothing happens. Bottle B causes a massive blast, nearly killing him by wiping out 80% of his HP. He dubs that one Hell Mine Oil, suitable only for desperate, last-ditch attacks. After healing up, he tests bottle C, which produces a smaller, controlled explosion, exactly what he was looking for. He names it Enhanced Oil and decides to make more of it for leveling up. He uses it in a hunt against 3 bears. The first one is restrained with his new whip and finished with a kick. The second is taken down using wind magic, and the third gets sniped in the head with his new arrow. He's satisfied with how much the oil helped his hunting, but realizes overusing it could stunt his skill growth. Suddenly, the system alerts him. His hunting bow skill has reached level 50, unlocking Gatling Arrow. His wind magic also hits level 50, granting him the ability to fly. Because he maxed out both, he's offered a unique skill, Aeolian Dust Hunting Bow. Earth decides to try out his new abilities. 1. Gatling Arrow lets him toss arrows into the air and fire them rapidly. Another, his fly ability, gives him enhanced jumping and the ability to glide for short periods. After testing them out, he heads back to the city and asks a craftsman to turn the bear pelt he collected into a leather cape. Suddenly, a global game announcement pops up. The developers declare the end of the Fairy PvP event and announce they'll now reveal the 16 players who qualified for the final tournament. Zwei shows up and tells Earth they probably missed their chance to qualify because they hadn't paid attention to the event at all. As the names are revealed, Earth notices that both the Old Man and Glad made the cut. Apparently, they had the highest win rates, both past 80% win rate with more than 200 matches played. Despite his past conversations with the Old Man, Earth is actually excited to watch the match between the two. The tournament kicks off, drawing a crowd to the arena. Earth uses his long-distance vision skill to scope things out and notices a few other players with the same in-game title as his. As the matches begin, he's impressed by how much the players have leveled up their fairies. If he had participated, he figures his odds of winning would have been around 10%. But then, something odd catches his attention. After each match, the winning fairy seems to absorb glowing particles from the defeated one. He doesn't know what that means, but he continues watching until the final showdown between the Old Man and Glad. Before the battle starts, Glad arrogantly tells the Old Man to forfeit. The Old Man calmly responds that he needs to correct him. When Glad asks how, the Old Man bluntly says he's going to clap him. The fight begins with both charging in. Glad manages to block the first attack and reveals that he already knows the old man's strategy, using his axe to fake him out and throw him off balance. The battle becomes intense, with both fighters using their fairies and abilities. At one point, the old man's fairy lands a hit that stuns Glad. The old man goes in for the finishing blow, but Glad uses wind magic to escape. He quickly counterattacks, and with help from his fairy, delivers a flaminal strike. Glad is declared the winner. But then, something unexpected happens. His fairy transforms into a small sphere of light, then reappears as a fox girl. Glad is thrilled, arrogantly saying she'd better be worth all this trouble, but to his surprise, the fox girl refuses to work with him ever again for a second longer. Confused, Glad demands an explanation. The fox girl reveals that the tournament was a test to determine the next ruler of the fairies. She mentions a prophecy stating that their leader must not only be powerful, but also a master of combat. Since fairies aren't naturally inclined toward war, they chose to learn from humans. In this tournament, winners absorbed the experience of their opponents until one fairy stood above the rest. Glad is annoyed, realizing the fairies use the players to evolve and are now ditching them. But the fox girl clarifies that most fairies still plan to stay loyal to their partners. She tells him bluntly that she's leaving. Now that their contract is over, there's no reason to stay. She only helped him to get revenge on the old man, nothing more. She explains that they never truly cared about each other, which is why they never worked together as real partners with shared goals. He yells at her in frustration, but she calmly explains that to him, this is just a game. But for her, it's reality. In 100 years from now, I'm sure this scenario will play out as it looks like this AI girl is dumping a guy she thinks is a loser. It's kind of brutal to watch, but yes, this was like a couple breaking up in public. That's when Earth realizes something unsettling. The fox girl isn't speaking like an NPC or AI, she sounds like a real person. Still, he chooses to ignore it for now. But now it sounds like an episode of Divorce Court, as she offers him $300,000 and will let him make a contract with a fairy just as powerful as she is, adding in a mocking barb that he can get an obedient fairy like he wanted. But Glad refuses. He doesn't want a replacement. He wants to fight her instead. The fairy queen finds it amusing and accepts. If he beats her, she'll follow him, but if he loses, he won't get the money nor a new fairy. After all, you can't hope to come to the table without offering anything. She immediately casts 5 spells at once: Earthquake, Fire Lance, Wind Cutter, Water Lance. Still, Glad shows he wasn't the strongest player for nothing. Glad dodges and lands an attack, but she evades it with ease and stuns him with a shock skill. From there, she unleashes more abilities, quickly defeating him. Once the fight ends, she brings the old man back. Glad has learned his lesson. Honestly, I don't know what lesson he was supposed to learn. If I'm Glad, I'd still be mad. She then summons all the Fairy Playboy players and thanks them for skipping the Fairy PvP event. As a reward, they each get a fairy. But Earth, he's a special case. Instead of a reward, she says he has to fight her. Earth is thrown off by the announcement, unsure why. Since he didn't participate in the event, she can't just hand him a prize, he has to earn it. I already know what's about to happen, and my heart goes out to Glad for losing his girl and seeing her with another guy the same day. The Fairy Queen makes up some BS for treating him special, saying it's because he didn't participate in the event even though the other girls didn't either. She wants to fight him personally, ignoring the other Fairy Playboy title holders. As a reward, Earth will receive some of her power, even if he loses. But if he wins, the rewards will be more personal. I think the game masters were overcooking King with the personality function, because it sounds like she's trying to have her code rearranged, if you know what I mean. Meanwhile, the shady developers remark that the event is reaching its peak. Earth is given a moment to plan. He knows the odds are against him. One powerful hit from her, and he'll be sent to the respawn point. Still, he has one edge. He's seen her fight before, and she probably hasn't fought someone who uses a bow as their main weapon. Earth is aware his low endurance means he can't afford a drawn-out battle. To win, he'll have to play dirty. He is prepared to oil her down if he must. When the countdown hits 0, Earth immediately retreats, gaining distance to take advantage of his ranged attacks. He fires an arrow at 70% power, but she blocks it with wind magic. Realizing he needs to go all in, he prepares a full-powered shot. She summons fire lances, but he dodges and fires again, this time piercing her shoulder through her fire magic defense. The Fairy Queen notices she's weak from range, so tries to close the distance, but Earth anticipates this and throws a flask at her. Thinking it's a potion, she tries to stop him, but it bursts into a cloud of poison. He follows up by hurling enhanced oil flasks, causing multiple explosions. She realizes too late that she should have banned items. Earth casually remarks that this is how humans fight. He has to rely on strategy to beat stronger foes. She then erects earth walls to block his vision, but Earth activates his stealth skill. As the walls begin to fade, she searches for him, only for him to ambush her from behind. She wanted him to come from behind, but not like this. He traps her with his whip, uses sliding charge, and launches a flurry of arrows. Then, with the help of his clones, stuns her in place. Shooting 2 of his twisted arrows, he leaps into the air with fly, fires a piercing arrow into her core, and kicks it in deeper. The Fairy Queen dematerializes, finishing his 13-hit combo. While the crowd is amazed by the performance, Earth realizes he just made his life harder. He exposed his entire combo, meaning players will now chase him for enhanced oils and duels. He tries to leave quietly, but the Fairy Queen reappears, bowing to him like a master. She tells him to bring out his broken contract crystal and the mysterious ring he found in a dungeon. The ring is the ring of the Fairy King. Surprised, he learns he already had 5 lights in the crystal. She calls upon the Children of Light, adding 2 more lights, and restores the crystal and ring. As she tries to place the ring on his finger, he admittedly tries to resist, thinking it looks like a marriage proposal. The woman doesn't deny this, but says it won't hurt him. The two struggle with both arguing their side, but she casts a strength-enhancing spell and forces it on him. The system reveals the ring makes him the 87th Fairy King. It is a unique artifact infused with all 6 fairy elements. It grants access to the fairy realm and boosts stats. 10% to attack, defense, and mana recovery, 5% reduced mana usage, and a chance to summon the Fairy Queen's illusion during attacks. With him unable to remove the item at any time, the Fairy Queen vanishes. He also gains a new title, the one who even charmed the Fairy Queen, which he knows will bring more problems. Earth notices more players taking up archery, something that used to be his niche. Although he continues crafting oils, he feels a bit disheartened. Out of nowhere, the Fairy Queen appears, catching Earth off guard. When he asks how she found him, she casually explains that the ring he has also works as a teleportation point. She jokes that she came to bring love to the lonely guy without a fairy, prompting Earth to smack her on the head. Knowing she's just there to escape her duties, he tells her to go back. Heading back to the city, Earth feels uneasy as people stare and whisper, calling him the Fairy Queen's husband. Before he can escape the attention, he hears a random guy yelling nearby, but chooses to ignore it and carry on with his plans to test something new while hunting. He recalls the Fairy Queen mentioning that wearing the ring lets him cast the Prism Nova spell. He weakens a bear with arrows, restrains it with his whip, and then chants a ridiculously long spell. A brilliant orb forms above the bear and turns it to stone. Though initially confused, he discovers that the spell randomly inflicts abnormal status effects. Later, Earth sets up a makeshift kitchen in a quiet area to cook multiple meals at once efficiently. He brings up the Prism Nova spell to the Fairy Queen, who explains that effects like paralysis and petrification have a low chance to trigger, and the spell has a long cooldown. She tries to sneak a bite of his cooking but gets smacked again. He plans to sell the food, not eat it. She complains that her homeland only serves sweets and she's tired of it, explaining she has the most responsibility and work to do as the ruler, unlike everyone else who can laze around. Suddenly, a strange, unattractive guy interrupts. He complains about being ignored in the city, and Earth realizes it's the annoying guy from earlier. The man introduces himself as Nazar from the Bow of Apollo Guild. Acting all high and mighty, Nazar declares their mission is to save archers from oppression, though Earth is the one actually doing that. The man graciously offers Earth a position as the lowest rank of his guild, expecting Earth to be grateful, with both the Fairy Queen and Earth ignoring him, eating food and packing. Seeing how ridiculous the guy is, Earth declines the invitation to join their guild, mocking him as he walks off. He opens a food stall in town, but the Fairy Queen refuses to leave, spending the afternoon with him. He relents and gives her a meal, joking about her big appetite. She brushes it off, calling him clueless about her true feelings, then disappears with a promise to return. Earth heads to Black's workshop to upgrade his gear, but he's also become famous as Black now has students, and the crowd won't stop staring. Black says it's because Earth is famous now. Wanting space, Earth asks everyone to back off. He gets to work rebuilding his X-type bow, which had lost durability. Using rare wood and light metal, he improves both the body and string, boosting the bow's attack power from plus 32 to plus 46. Next, he enhances his bladed shoes using light metal for better armor and stability. He adds twisted arrowhead spikes to the soles and fang-shaped blades to the toes, all detachable for easy replacement. The finished product, the fang leg blade, adds 10 defense and 29 attack. Lastly, Earth checks in on a crafter making his cloak and finds that she nearly created a perfect grade item, but insists on charging the original price. Earth is surprised but impressed by her integrity. Just as he prepares to go hunting, he receives a message from Ayame, the bow of Apollo's guildmaster. When they meet, she introduces herself and apologizes for Nazar's behavior. She explains that Earth's popularity skyrocketed after his duel with the Fairy Queen, and Nazar foolishly tried to use his name to recruit others. Earth isn't bothered, but Ayame continues, revealing that Nazar even claimed Earth was part of their guild. She and the other members all apologize, and Earth tells them to raise their heads. Ayame then mentions that Nazar was demoted from lieutenant to regular member as punishment. They decide not to kick Nazar out of the guild, but he's stripped of all his privileges. Earth thinks that's a fair punishment and agrees with the decision. Ayame then makes things a little personal, telling him she watched his match and sees him as a symbol of hope for all archers. Earth doesn't feel the same. He only chose to play a weak class to stay under the radar. Meanwhile, in the developer's office, the team discusses Earth. They're impressed that he defeated the Fairy Queen and even befriended it, and note how much influence he's had on the player base. As a result, they decide to start monitoring his account. While Earth is busy aura farming, posing with his new cape, Earth's friend Zwei shows up and reveals a new status effect called Break Arms, which temporarily prevents players from wielding weapons if they're hit by it. Also, if a player takes damage equal to more than 25% of their total HP specifically to their arms, Earth's friends feel bad for him since this nerfs him directly, but he doesn't really care. He's just glad it means no one can loot his hard-earned gear anymore. He explains how in another game, people would steal his stuff every time he died, so this is an improvement. Then a new dungeon is announced, a challenge from the Departed. Every run through it is completely randomized, new traps, layouts, and enemies every time, with the ultimate goal of reaching the 10th floor. Realizing he'll need better defense in such an unpredictable space, Earth decides to get himself a shield. But at the end of the announcement, a promo video plays, featuring his guild and showcasing both him and Zwei as star players. This bums Earth out because he chose bows specifically for their underdog status, and now newbies think they're busted tier. Knowing dodging alone won't cut it in narrow dungeon corridors, Earth unveils his new small shield, chosen for its compatibility with bow use. With fresh materials in hand, he starts crafting new gear and reveals he's also working on a sleek compound bow, using real-world design schematics to make it more advanced than what's currently in-game. When his friend Black sees the finished bow, he's shocked. It only has a weapon score of 3, but its attack stat is a whopping 38. Unfortunately, there's a catch. Earth says the arrows for it are way too expensive, so he just built it to study its mechanics. He doesn't even plan to use it. He's already thinking ahead to an even better setup. The weapon Earth wants to build doesn't even exist in real life, so he has to design it from scratch. He pulls an all-nighter to finish it, and it's not just any shield. This one's tricked out with a hidden, compact bow built into it. It's small, precise, and deadly, equipped with a scope for improved accuracy. When he lets go of the grip, it transforms back into a regular shield. It's a custom weapon made just for him, and it packs a punch. Plus, even if he gets hit with the arm breaker effect, he can still fight from a distance. Later, Earth arrives at the new dungeon and sees a crowd gathered, tons of players outside, and merchants everywhere cashing in on the rush. That's when a group of knockoff Power Rangers taps him on the shoulder. They try to reenact their show's theme. Earth shuts it down fast. No way he's risking a copyright lawsuit. He wonders where the Black Ranger is, and they explain he's out sick. Desperate, they ask Earth to fill in. Earth agrees, figuring he won't get far solo in the dungeon anyway. The bootleg Rangers stay in character, hyped up to take down the evil villains and destroy their hideout. But Earth holds them back. He scans the dungeon first and immediately realizes they're in trouble. 15 traps just in the first room, and some are instant death. He takes point, guiding the team through. Blue Ranger breathes a sigh of relief, while Red Ranger confidently says he always trusted Earth. After all, anyone married to the Fairy Queen must be strong. They clear the first area, and Earth lets the Rangers take the lead. They run into monsters, but the group handles it like pros, giving Earth room to focus on spotting traps. By the third floor, the threats ramp up. Pink Ranger tells the squad to step aside and watch her handle things. She clears some enemies on the 4th floor too, though they're clearly tougher than before. The Yellow Ranger is surprised when his attacks don't work, so Earth steps in to explain that physical attacks won't cut it against these specific monsters. Earth, using wind magic on his bows, cleans house with his special attacks. They find the entrance to the 4th floor, but a whopping 40 minutes have already passed in the dungeon. With only an hour to complete it, they decide to adjust their goal to just reaching the 5th floor. On the 4th floor, Earth gets a weird feeling like the Grim Reaper is caressing his face. Something's off and they hear a blood-curdling scream begging for help. These wannabe heroes leap into action and Earth reluctantly follows. But it's a trap, shutting a door behind them, and Earth realizes they're stuck until they complete the room's quest. The room is filled with skeleton monsters, with there already being a group of players who look badly injured. The Rangers are pumped to play hero and fight in the battle. Earth scans for traps. Luckily, finding none, he's able to go all out and doesn't need to hold back. Everyone showcases flashy and unique attacks, a bit too flashy for Earth's taste, but undeniably powerful. The room is eventually cleared. One of the players from the weak party goes to open the chest. Earth scans it and sees there's a giant trap on it. He tries to warn the guy not to open it, but the guy takes it the wrong way, asking if he somehow feels entitled to the reward just because they saved him. Honestly, let this guy get what he deserves, as, yeah, Earth and the Rangers deserve the reward since his group did nothing but watch. The guy reveals he's a thief and doesn't see any trap. Earth decides to let the guy get what he deserves. The Rangers don't like this as it feels like Earth doesn't want the reward he deserves, but the Blue Ranger lets Earth handle this. With that, Earth agrees to let the party have it, but he must open it when they leave the room. His group follows the Red Ranger's orders and they leave. Earth reveals to them that there's a second trap in this room. It's supposed to kill you if you let your greed overtake you. With that, the group is rewarded with a blessing. The time runs out and they're sent outside. The Red Ranger knows it's rude to ask, but wants to know about his skill, as the guy claimed to be a thief but couldn't see the trap, so that means Earth is much stronger. Red Ranger, impressed by Earth, is itching to ask about his level. Earth doesn't spill the exact number but admits he's over 20. In reality, he's over level 30, but Earth decides not to drop that bomb on someone he just met. They split up their not-so-impressive winnings. Earth adds them as friends, and they bid their goodbyes. Later, Earth realizes he needs to disarm traps faster to reach the 10th floor, so he decides to build a tool to enhance his thief skill. Black steps in to help and makes the lockpicking tool even better than Earth hoped. Earth gets inspired and works even harder, making a ton of arrows for the next dungeon run. Suddenly, the Fairy Queen reappears loudly, declaring her arrival. Earth doesn't like this. This makes her angry, asking darkly if she needs to make a big announcement before her arrival, promising pain if he answers wrong. Earth questions her on why she's not in her casual clothes. The Queen explains that she's giving out the new fairy crystals to new players as she has to write out the emails herself. She tries to reach in for a kiss, calling Earth her husband, but is swatted away. The two set off, and Earth cuts down some trees and makes a ton of new arrows. When she comes back, she looks like she came from war. Earth notices this and comments on it. She then gets fired up, remembering it as she handed the crystals all in person, which was fine. But dealing with weird and uncomfortable questions like her body measurements, what type of guy she likes, cheating questions, cucumber pics, and more personal questions. The AI wished she had help as she's being worked as hard as ChatGPT, dealing with all these weird questions. Earth feels bad for her. The Queen had no choice other than to seek revenge on the battlefield as she summoned all the humans to battle her, defeat them, revive them each 10 times, then give them a death penalty each time for hours on end. But instead of feeling pain, those weirdos wanted more. In the end, she took showers, repeating the phrase, "Humans are scary," for hours. With that said, she wants to be pampered by Earth, also having a document from Town Hall making them officially married once he signs it. Earth doesn't know how she got this crazy idea. She then says it's her job to cheer him up after a day of work. Later, the Fairy Queen is amazed by how delicious Earth's meat bun is, and he proudly announces that his cooking skill hit level 50, allowing him to use a steamer. She's glad to be the first to taste it. Earth, sensing the difficulty of being a queen, decides not to push her away this time, but she gets a bit too comfortable calling him husband, and Earth wonders if he just made a huge mistake.